My name is Sofia Martinez. I'm 34. Last Tuesday at 2:47 p.m., I was standing in the staff break room at Riverside Community Health Clinic when my supervisor, Dr. Patricia Chen, walked in holding a letter, and before she could say a word, I knew my mother had gotten to her too. The letter was on cream-colored stationery, folded into precise thirds, and Patricia's hand was shaking as she held it. Sophia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Her voice cracked on the word honest. Have you been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder? Because your mother sent this to Pastor Michael at Grace Community, and he forwarded it to our clinic director asking if we were aware of your condition and whether patients were safe. My throat closed. The fluorescent lights above us buzzed like trapped flies. I could see my reflection in the window behind Patricia. Pale scrubs, hair pulled back, the same face I'd been wearing for 12-hour shifts, 4 days a week, for the past 6 years. I looked at the letter again, my mother's handwriting, her signature at the bottom. I've never been diagnosed with anything, I said. My voice sounded far away. I've never even seen a therapist. Patricia set the letter on the table between us. She claims you've had violent episodes, that you abandoned the family, that you're a danger to yourself and potentially others. She paused. She says she's writing this out of Christian love and concern. Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. I picked up the letter. Read it once. Then again. My mother described me as erratic, unstable, prone to rage. She said I'd threatened her. She said I'd stolen from my sister. She said she feared for my mental state and wanted the church and my employer to intervene before I hurt someone. Every word was a lie, but every word was written with the careful precision of someone who'd practiced this story so many times she believed it herself. This isn't true, I said. None of this is true. Patricia looked at me with something like pity. I believe you, Sophia, but I have to take this to HR. You understand that, right? I understood. I understood that my mother had just tried to destroy my career with 8 paragraphs and a church letterhead reference. Let me take you back 14 years, to the last time I felt safe in my own family. I was 20, home from my second year of the RN program at State, and my father was making his famous Sunday pancakes, the ones with cinnamon and vanilla extract that made the whole kitchen smell like a bakery. He was humming something off-key, and my mother was at church, and it was just us. Sophia B., he said, flipping a pancake without looking. He'd called me that since I was 4. B, because I was always buzzing around, asking questions, building things. You're going to make one hell of a nurse. You think so? He turned and looked at me with those steady gray eyes. I know so. You've got your grandmother's hands. Steady. Kind. He slid the pancake onto my plate. Listen to me. Your mother. She's got her own demons, okay? Don't let them become yours. You keep your head down, finish school, and when you're ready, you build your own life. Somewhere she can't reach. I didn't understand what he meant then. I do now. Promise me something, B. If anything happens to me, you wait. You don't react, you don't fight back, you wait. I'm taking care of things. Trust me on that. I promised. I had no idea what I was promising. 3 months after that conversation, I came home for winter break and found my mother in the kitchen with Ellie, my younger sister by 2 years. They were looking at wedding magazines. Ellie was engaged to some youth pastor from the megachurch 3 towns over. My mother looked up when I walked in, and her smile was all teeth. Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence. Hi, Mom. Hi, Ellie. Ellie didn't look up from the magazine. My mother set down her coffee mug, the one that said "Blessed beyond measure," and leaned back in her chair. Your father tells me you're planning to specialize in family practice. How ambitious. The way she said ambitious made it sound like a character flaw. I want to work with underserved communities, I said. Community health clinics, maybe rural areas. My mother's laugh was sharp and short. Of course you do. Always so eager to save the world, Sophia. Too bad you can't save yourself. She glanced at Ellie, who smiled into her magazine. Ellie's fiancé is starting a practice at the church. Real medicine, real patients who can actually pay. I'm sure that's great, I said quietly. Unlike you, Ellie knows her place in this family. She knows what loyalty means. I felt my face burn. I'm loyal, Mom. Are you? She stood up, smoothing her skirt. Because loyal daughters don't embarrass their mothers by choosing poverty work over real careers. Loyal daughters don't make their families look bad. I wanted to ask how my career choices made her look bad. I wanted to ask why everything I did had to be filtered through her social standing at Grace Community Church. I wanted to ask why Ellie got praised for marrying a pastor while I got criticized for wanting to help people who couldn't afford health care. Instead, I said, I'm sorry you feel that way. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. You're always sorry, Sophia. But you never change. That was the first time I heard what would become her signature line. You never change. She'd say it at family dinners when I mentioned work. She'd say it at church when I showed up in scrubs instead of a dress. She'd say it every time I failed to be the daughter she wanted. Polished, compliant, married to someone with a title. My father died 6 years later, heart surgery complications. He was 61. I was 26, halfway through my Master of Science in Nursing program, working night shifts at the ER to pay tuition. I got the call at 4:32 a.m. from my mother. She didn't cry. She just said, Your father's gone. Funeral is Saturday at Grace Community. Wear something appropriate. She hung up before I could speak. I drove 8 hours straight from my apartment to my childhood home. When I arrived, there were cars everywhere. Church ladies bringing casseroles, deacons organizing flowers, Ellie directing traffic like a wedding planner. My mother was holding court in the living room, accepting condolences with graceful humility. When she saw me, her expression went cold. You're late. I came as fast as I could. Ellie's been here since yesterday. But then again, Ellie always puts family first. She turned back to the pastor's wife, dismissing me. The funeral was massive. 300 people packed into Grace Community Church, and I sat in the front row between my mother and Ellie, surrounded by strangers who knew the public version of Richard Eisner, successful accountant, devoted church member, beloved father. None of them knew the man who made Sunday pancakes and called me Sophia B. and told me to wait. After the service, during the reception in the fellowship hall, my mother gave a speech. She talked about my father's dedication to family, his unwavering faith, his love for his daughters. She looked directly at Ellie when she said daughters. Then she mentioned me. Sophia, of course, has been so busy with her nursing career that she couldn't be here for Richard's final months. But we understand. Some people prioritize differently. The room went silent. I felt 300 pairs of eyes on me. My face burned so hot I could feel my pulse in my teeth. That's not, I started, but my mother cut me off. It's fine, sweetheart. Your father understood. He knew you had more important things than family. I stood there, hands shaking, and said nothing. What could I say? That I'd visited every weekend I wasn't working? That my father had told me not to put my life on hold? That I'd been the one sitting with him during his pre-op appointments while my mother was at her Bible study group? No one would believe me. They never did. I left the reception early and went to my father's office, the small room off the garage where he used to do taxes and listen to jazz. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. Desk calendar still open to the month he died, coffee mug with a faint brown ring, a framed photo of me at my RN graduation. I sat in his chair and cried for 20 minutes straight. Then I saw it, a business card tucked into the frame of my graduation photo. William Carver, attorney at law. I pulled it out. On the back, in my father's handwriting, Sophia, if you're reading this, call him. He's been expecting you. I didn't call. Not then. I told myself it was nothing, just some lawyer friend of my dad's. I went back to school, finished my MSN, got my nurse practitioner certification, took the job at Riverside Community Health Clinic. I built the life my father told me to build, somewhere my mother couldn't reach. Except she could reach. She always could. Over the next 8 years, the lies spread like mold. I'd hear them from former classmates, distant relatives, people at the grocery store. Sophia Martinez, the one who abandoned her family. Sophia Martinez, the one who only cares about herself. Sophia Martinez, who broke her mother's heart. I tried to correct the record once, at a cousin's wedding. I told Aunt Linda that I visited Dad every weekend, that I was there when he died, that Mom was rewriting history. Linda patted my hand and said, "I'm sure you believe that, honey." That's when I learned, you can't fight a reputation. You can only outlive it. My mother escalated slowly. First it was passive comments at church functions. Then it was concerned phone calls to my coworkers. Then it was social media posts about praying for family members struggling with mental health. She never used my name, but everyone knew. Ellie backed her up every time. Sweet, dutiful Ellie, who'd married the youth pastor and popped out 3 kids and taught Sunday school and posted Bible verses on Facebook. Ellie, who told people I'd always been difficult and troubled and hard to love. The letter to Pastor Michael was just the latest move. But it was the most dangerous. Doctor Chen called me into her office 3 days later. HR wants to put you on administrative leave while they investigate. Investigate what? I haven't done anything. I know, but the letter mentions patient safety, and we have protocols. She looked miserable. It's paid leave, 2 weeks. Just let them do their review. I walked out of the clinic at 11:47 a.m. on a Thursday. My badge temporarily deactivated, my patients reassigned, my reputation in shreds. Again. I sat in my car in the parking lot and pulled out my phone. Found the business card I'd kept in my wallet for 8 years. William Carver, attorney at law. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Carver, my name is Sophia Martinez. My father was Richard Eisner. There was a pause. Then, Sophia, I've been waiting for your call. Can you come to my office today? His office was downtown, 4th floor of a brick building that smelled like old paper and lemon polish. William Carver was 70 if he was a day, with white hair and kind eyes and a handshake that felt like a promise. Your father was a good man, he said, gesturing for me to sit. One of the best clients I ever had. Not because of the legal work, that was simple, but because he knew exactly what he was doing, and he never wavered. I don't understand. Carver pulled a file from his desk. Thick, labeled Eisner, Sophia M. He set it in front of me. Your father came to me 11 years ago, right after you started nursing school. He said your mother was going to come after you eventually, and when she did, you'd need proof that you weren't what she'd claim you were. My hands went numb. He spent 8 years documenting everything. Every visit you made, every phone call, every birthday card, every hospital stay, every conversation. He kept receipts, emails, text messages. He recorded phone calls, with permission, all legal. He collected witness statements from neighbors, from his doctors, from your professors. He built you an alibi for a crime you hadn't even been accused of yet. Carver opened the file. Inside were hundreds of pages. Bank statements showing wire transfers to my tuition account, phone logs, a journal in my father's handwriting, dated entries going back a decade, photos of us together, time-stamped and geotagged, medical records from his appointments with my name listed as primary family contact present. Why didn't he tell me? Because he knew you'd try to stop him. He knew you'd tell him it wasn't necessary, that your mother wouldn't go that far. Carver's expression softened. But he knew better. And he was right. I stared at the file. What am I supposed to do with this? Wait, Carver said. That's what Richard told me to tell you. Wait until she goes public. Wait until she makes a claim so big that the evidence will matter. Then use it. He pushed an envelope across the desk. "This is for you." He wrote it 3 weeks before he died. My hands shook as I opened it. My father's handwriting. 2 pages, front and back. "Dear Sophia B., if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and your mother is doing exactly what I knew she'd do. She's trying to make you small. She's trying to rewrite who you are until even you start to believe her version. I'm sorry I couldn't stop this while I was alive. I tried talking to her, reasoning with her, threatening her. Nothing worked. Sienna doesn't hear words, she only hears consequences. Do you remember those Sunday pancakes? You used to tell me you wanted to help people nobody else wanted to help. You were 8 years old, and you already knew who you were. I told you then that you had your grandmother's hands, steady and kind. I meant it. The file William is giving you contains everything you need to prove the truth. Every visit you made during my illness is documented. Every shift you worked is logged. Every dollar I gave you for school has a paper trail. Your mother will claim you abandoned me. The evidence says otherwise. Inside this file, you'll also find recordings of phone calls where Sienna admits she resents your career choice, text messages where she coordinates with Ellie to undermine you, witness statements from 3 of my doctors confirming you were present at every major appointment. A notarized letter from me, dated and witnessed, stating that you were the most devoted daughter any father could ask for. There's also a savings account. I've been setting aside money for 8 years. It's not much, $47,000, but it's enough to hold you over if she tries to destroy your career. The account information is with William. You are not unstable. You are not selfish. You are not hard to love. You are exactly who you were meant to be. A healer, a fighter, a woman who chose the harder path because it was the right one. Don't confront her privately. She'll twist it. Wait until she goes public, until there are witnesses who matter. Then let the evidence speak. I love you, Sophia B. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you win. But you will win. All my love, Dad. I read the letter 3 times, sitting in William Carver's office. The third time, I started laughing. Not because anything was funny, but because my father had spent 8 years building me a legal fortress, and I'd spent 8 years thinking I was alone. There's one more thing, Carver said quietly. He pulled out a smaller envelope. He asked me to give you this if your mother ever involved the church. He predicted she'd go to Pastor Michael eventually. Inside was a single piece of paper. A printed email from my mother to my father, dated 4 years before he died. In it, she explicitly stated that she resented me for making the family look poor by working at a community clinic instead of a private practice. She said I was an embarrassment to the Martinez name and that she'd make sure people knew the truth about my selfish choices. My father had replied to that email with one line, "Sienna, if you ever try to sabotage Sophia's career or reputation, I will make sure everyone at Grace Community knows exactly who you are." She'd sent that email on a Tuesday. He'd died on a Saturday 6 years later. She'd waited until he couldn't stop her. I looked at William Carver. "What do I do now?" "You wait," he said. "Your mother just sent that letter to Pastor Michael and your clinic director. That means she's going public. Let her. The more witnesses to her claims, the more devastating the correction will be." I went home to my small one-bedroom apartment and set the file on my kitchen table. I didn't open it again. I didn't need to. I knew what was inside. Truth, documented and dated, and irrefutable. 2 weeks later, HR called me back to work. "We found no evidence to support the claims in the letter," Dr. Chen said. She looked exhausted. "But Sophia, this stays in your file. If any other complaints come in, I understand." I went back to my shifts, back to my patients, back to pretending everything was fine. But something had shifted inside me. I wasn't scared anymore. I was just waiting. The call came on December 18th at 6:23 p.m. Pastor Michael from Grace Community Church. "Sophia, I'm calling because your mother has asked to address the congregation on Christmas Eve. She wants to share her testimony about loving a mentally ill daughter who won't accept help." My stomach dropped. She what? I'm required to inform you as a courtesy since you're named. She's framed it as a ministry opportunity, teaching the congregation how to love difficult family members. Christmas Eve service at Grace Community was the biggest event of the year. 400 people, every church member, every donor, every family in the community. My mother had chosen her stage carefully. When does she speak? I asked. During the candlelight portion, right before communion, 7 p.m. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called William Carver. She's going nuclear, I said. Good, he replied. Then so are we. Christmas Eve at Grace Community Church was always beautiful. White lights everywhere, poinsettias lining the altar, the smell of pine and candle wax. I arrived at 6:45 p.m., wearing a simple black dress and my grandmother's pearls. I sat in the back row, alone. My mother was in the front, surrounded by her prayer group. Ellie sat next to her, holding her youngest daughter. They looked like a painting, 3 generations of faithful women, glowing in candlelight. Pastor Michael began the service with a prayer, then carols, then announcements. At 6:58 p.m., he invited my mother to the microphone. She walked up slowly, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The church went silent. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, she began. Her voice was soft, trembling. This is a hard testimony to share, but I believe God is calling me to be vulnerable with my church family. I sat perfectly still. My oldest daughter, Sophia, is here tonight. She gestured vaguely toward the back. A few people turned to look at me. I love her more than anything in this world. But she's been struggling with severe mental illness for years, and she refuses to get help. Gasps rippled through the congregation. I've tried everything: prayer, counseling, intervention. I even reached out to her employer and her pastor, begging them to help me reach her before she hurts herself or someone else. Her voice broke. But she won't listen. She's convinced that I'm the problem, that I'm trying to control her. She's rewritten our entire family history to make herself the victim. Ellie stood up and walked to our mother's side, putting an arm around her shoulders. It's okay, Mom, she said into the microphone. We're all praying for her. My mother sobbed. I just want my daughter back. The real Sophia, before the illness took over. I want her to know that no matter what she's done, no matter how much she's hurt this family, I will always love her. The congregation murmured sympathetically. Someone said, Amen. Someone else said, We're here for you, Sienna. Pastor Michael stepped forward. Let's take a moment to pray for the Martinez family. Excuse me. I stood up. My voice cut through the sanctuary like a bell. Every head turned. I walked down the center aisle, my heels clicking on the marble floor. I was holding a folder. William Carver was sitting 3 rows back, exactly where I'd asked him to be. Sophia, my mother said, her voice dripping with concern. Sweetheart, this isn't the time. Actually, Mom, this is exactly the time. I stopped 10 feet from the altar, looked at Pastor Michael. May I speak? He hesitated, glanced at my mother, then nodded. I turned to face the congregation, 400 people staring at me. I felt calm, completely, perfectly calm. My name is Sophia Martinez. I'm a nurse practitioner at Riverside Community Health Clinic, where I've worked for 6 years. I specialize in treating uninsured and underinsured patients, people who can't afford private care. I paused. My mother just told you I'm mentally ill, that I've abandoned my family, that I'm dangerous. I want you to know that every single word of that is a lie. My mother's face went white. Sophia, you're not well. I have never been diagnosed with any mental illness, I continued. I have never been hospitalized. I have never threatened anyone. I have never stolen from my family. What I have done is choose a career my mother considers beneath our social standing, and for that, she has spent 8 years destroying my reputation. Ellie stepped forward. That's not true. Mom has been nothing but supportive. Really, Ellie? Because I have an email here, dated 4 years before Dad died, where Mom explicitly says I'm an embarrassment to the family because I work at a community clinic instead of a private practice. I pulled the paper from my folder and held it up. Would you like me to read it aloud? The sanctuary was dead silent. Pastor Michael cleared his throat. Sophia, perhaps we should. My father knew this was coming, I said. My voice was steady, but I could feel tears starting. I didn't wipe them away. He spent 8 years documenting the truth. Every visit I made during his illness, every shift I worked, every conversation we had. He knew Mom would rewrite history after he died, so he built me proof. I opened the folder. This file contains phone logs showing I called him 3 times a week during his final year, bank statements showing he paid my tuition because he was proud of me, not because I manipulated him. Witness statements from his doctors, 3 of them are members of this church, confirming I attended every single major appointment. A woman in the third row gasped. I recognized her. Dr. Susan Mills, one of my father's cardiologists. She was nodding. Mom told you I abandoned Dad during his final months. The truth is, I was there every weekend I wasn't working a shift. I was there the night he died. I was the one holding his hand. My voice cracked. And Mom's first words to me after he passed were, "You're late." My mother was crying now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. "You ungrateful." I also have recordings, I said quietly. Phone calls where you admit you resent my career. Text messages where you and Ellie coordinate stories to make me look bad. A notarized letter from Dad, written 3 weeks before he died, stating that I was the most devoted daughter he could ask for. Ellie's face had gone from pink to gray. That's not... we never... You sent a letter to my employer 2 weeks ago claiming I'm dangerous and mentally unstable. You asked them to remove me from patient care. I looked directly at my mother. You tried to destroy my career because I wouldn't let you control my life. Pastor Michael was staring at my mother, so was everyone else. I didn't come here for revenge, I said. I came here because my father asked me to wait until the truth mattered, until there were witnesses. I set the folder on the altar. Everything's in here. Phone logs, emails, bank records, medical documents, witness statements. Anyone who wants to verify the facts is welcome to review them. I turned to walk away, then stopped, looked back at my mother one last time. You told this congregation I rewrote our family history. You were half right. Dad rewrote it, with dates, times, and signatures, and he did it because he knew exactly who you are. I walked back down the aisle. The sanctuary was so quiet, I could hear the candles flickering. William Carver stood as I passed his row. Well done, Sophia, he said quietly. I didn't stay for the rest of the service. I walked out into the cold December air and sat in my car and cried until I couldn't breathe. Not sad tears, relief tears. The kind that come when you've been holding something heavy for so long you forgot what it felt like to put it down. My phone started ringing 20 minutes later. Aunt Linda, then Cousin Mark, then Dr. Mills, then people I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't answer. The next morning, Christmas Day, I got a text from Pastor Michael. I owe you an apology. I should have questioned the letter. I should have asked for your side. I'm sorry. I wrote back, thank you. Ellie called on December 27th. I let it go to voicemail. She said, Sophia, please. Mom is devastated. She didn't mean, she was just trying to, please call me back. I deleted it. My mother never called. But 3 days later, I got a message from her prayer group leader asking me to consider forgiveness and reconciliation for the sake of family unity. I wrote back, I forgive her, but forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means I'm not letting it poison the rest of my life. Word spread fast. By New Year's, everyone at Grace Community knew the truth. My mother stopped attending services. Ellie switched to a different church across town. I heard through Aunt Linda that Mom was telling people she'd been misunderstood, that I'd taken things out of context. Some people believed her, most didn't. I went back to work on January 3rd. Dr. Chen called me into her office. Sophia, I owe you an apology too. I should have dug deeper before recommending leave. You followed protocol, I said. I don't blame you. Still, she smiled. For what it's worth, you're one of the best NPS we've ever had. Your patients ask for you by name. That says more than any letter ever could. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my apartment on a Saturday morning, drinking coffee and watching snow fall outside my window. I'm not in the cold anymore. I'm on the warm side of the glass. I keep my father's letter in a frame on my desk, next to a photo of us at my RN graduation. Sometimes I read it when I have a bad shift, when a patient yells at me, or insurance denies coverage for the third time, or I'm just tired of fighting. It reminds me that I'm not fighting alone. I never was. I still work at Riverside Community Health Clinic. I still treat patients who can't afford care anywhere else. I still choose the harder path because it's the right one. My mother was right about one thing. I never change. But she was wrong about what that means. Last month, I used some of the money my father left me to start a scholarship fund for nursing students from low-income families. It's called the Richard Eisner Memorial Scholarship. The first recipient is a 20-year-old woman from the West Side who wants to be a pediatric nurse practitioner. Her mother is so proud she cried at the award ceremony. If you're watching this and you've ever been told you're too much or not enough, if someone has tried to rewrite who you are to fit their story, I want you to know something. The truth doesn't need you to defend it. It just needs you to document it. My father spent 8 years collecting receipts for a fight he knew was coming. He didn't do it because he thought I was weak. He did it because he knew my mother would never fight fair, and he wanted to make sure I had more than just my word when the time came. You don't need anyone's permission to be valuable. But you do need to give yourself permission to walk away from people who make you prove it over and over. If you've ever had to choose between being loved and being yourself, type, "I chose myself" in the comments. Or if you're still trying to make that choice, type, "I'm not ready yet." Both are valid. Both are brave. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. Merry Christmas if you celebrate. And if you don't, I hope you're warm and safe and surrounded by people who see you for exactly who you are.